Hello, everybody. Forgive me for being in my house right now. I am a little sick and I can't really be in the office, but I can make a video. So I wanted to make a video about chapter 2 because chapter 2 is really important. So, um, because of that, I'm going to um, dive into it. So, chapter 2 is all about research methods. And if you're anything like me, when I was in undergrad research, there we go, you can see me a little bit better now. Research methods and understanding that, I'll probably take my glasses off. Anyways, that's fine. Research methods is all about understanding different aspects of whatever it is that you're studying with your research project. So, breaking it down a little bit, I'm going to open up chapter 2 here. It's really important to know the different parts of what you're examining in a research project. So, breaking it down on the most simplistic level, we have a variable, we have independent variables, and we have dependent variables. Variables are factors, really anything, a person, a place that can change or vary over time. The book talks about temperature being a variable. It's something that can change over time or that stays the same for a period amount of time. But it never stays the same forever. It varies, right? Depending on where you are throughout the day. An independent variable is a variable that is systematically changed to see the impact. So when you think about an independent variable, I want you to think about whatever it is in an experiment that you're manipulating, right? So this would be using a rat example. There's a rat in a maze, and you want to see how long it takes for the rat to get through this specific maze, to eat the cheese, I don't know, whatever it is at the very end. However, you want to see the impact on time with different types of mazes. So you're manipulating, you're changing the type of maze. You're not changing time or the fact if it's going to get cheese at the end or not. You're changing if it's in a maze, or you're changing like the type of maze that it's in. And then lastly, dependent variable. That's measured in an experiment. The dependent variable can also be related to outcome, to your outcome variable. And it is allowed to vary freely to see if it is affected by changes in the independent variable. So in our rat race example, time would be the dependent variable because you're seeing if the type of maze, right, directly affects how long it takes for the mouse to race through the maze. The PowerPoint gives an example here. And I really suggest that you guys just take time to go through different examples because that is what is usually the most helpful in understanding this topic. Let's say you want to test how does the number of hours sitting in front of the computer affect back pain? Okay, so let's break it down. I'm wondering how many hours of sitting in front of a computer, so the amount of time in front of a computer, how does that impact back pain? So using our previous example, there's a lot of variables, right? We've got number of hours, we've got back pain, right? And I guess like numbers of hours sitting in front of a computer, and we have back pain. So two very clear variables. And if I remember correctly, an independent variable is the thing that you manipulate, right? The thing that you're changing that can be changed. Or a dependent variable, that's the outcome. That's sort of what you're wondering is impacted by that change of the independent variable. So breaking it down further, that would mean, right, with that mindset, that number of hours sitting in front of a computer, right? That would be our independent variable. And back pain is our dependent variable because it is directly impacted by the number of hours, right? Ideally, the longer I sit in front of a computer, the more my back's going to hurt, and how that impacts me. So, yeah. Here's another way to remember it. Remember, I do not control the pain. I control the independent variable, meaning I control the number of hours I sit on it, right? So another way to remember it. Now we go into ways that the variables can interact with each other, or relationships. So relationships among variables can be both positive, negative, or neutral, or no relationship. A positive relationship would mean as the independent variable increases, so does the dependent variable, right? So that would be like our previous example. The more hours that we spend in front of a computer sitting, the higher our pain goes. Hopefully not, because you hopefully aren't sitting in front of it too long. A negative relationship would be if the independent variable increases, the dependent variable decreases. So it's not saying that both go down, right? Positive is when both go up, but negative is just when one flips, when the dependent variable goes down, or it goes up and the independent variable goes down. So it's an inverse relationship is what a negative relationship would mean. So that's like if I, for some reason, the less amount of time I spend in front of the TV, the happier I am. I don't know, something the whatever it is that you're measuring, it's increased. Or if we flip it, it could mean the the lesser amount of calories I eat in a given day, my anger increases because I'm going to be hangry. So, true story. Now we get into stimulus and response. So, breaking down a lot of behaviorism stuff. A stimulus is any event that can potentially influence your behavior. It's interesting. The book or the PowerPoint talks about an appetitive stimulus, which we were just talking about, appetite. Um, so that is an event that an orgasm will seek out, right? So that would be, we seek out an appetitive stimulus. We're hungry. We have an impulse for food. Or if you're like me right now, I'm pretty dehydrated. I'm seeking out water, and I have some here. So give me a second. I'm actually going to grab a sip of my water. Okay, cool. Now we continue. An aversive stimulus is anything that we avoid. So this would be like in maybe some of the things you've read already, about some studies in which animals were shocked, right? The salivating dog experiment, where the dogs were shocked repeatedly at the sound of a bell when they were about to eat. And so eventually, over time, they avoid the food because they begin to associate it with a shock. So that is you actually introducing an aversive stimulus. In the clinical world, this can happen sometimes if we have a memory, such as vomiting growing up in school. Some kids get sick at school and they vomit, and then because I don't know, maybe they spun around too many times on the playground swings, and they vomit whatever food they had for lunch that day, and they begin, right, for like several years afterwards. They have like an aversive response to whatever food it is they ate because it has a really negative association in their experience. The book, the PowerPoint breaks down a little bit more about psychology, the study of it, how it looks to explain experience learning, and then how it can eventually dive into changes in behavior. I think you guys can read over that. Y'all are smart enough to look over theories. spend some time really breaking down and coming up with examples on variables and independent variables. Again, when I was in undergrad, I had to take my time going through it to make sure I could get it straight. And so you guys are absolutely going to be quizzed on that. So the final point of the PowerPoint gets into the advantages and the disadvantages of animal research. And from an ethical perspective, it's something that we are absolutely more aware of now in regards to hurting animals just to learn something. Several years ago, and for example, back in the 20th or the 19th century, um, our ethic laws were not as they are now. So, um, the experiments that John B. Watson and other researchers did that we learned a lot from would not necessarily be permitted now, right? Because ethically, there's a lot of challenges in um, sort of what they did. And ethics is really can be complex and simple at the same time. So I want you guys to think more about the disadvantages and advantages of animal research. It's something that we still do today. We just have laws that govern it a little bit better, especially like if you're in graduate school or in any kind of research lab. So, um, those are the high points for chapter 2. Thank you guys for your patience. And again, thank you for being flexible with me as I'm a little bit sick doing this from my house. Thanks. All right, now we're ending. Goodbye.